Welcome to the Events Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Taylor, and each week I talk with event professionals and entrepreneurs about how they plan, promote, and run their events. We help you build your events empire by growing your business using live events, whether you're running community meetups or conferences, trade shows, and other events. We focus on finding actionable tips that you can use straight away. We want you to get more attendees, produce epic events, make more money, and most importantly, to do it all with no stress. This podcast is sponsored by EventsFrame. Check it out over at eventsframe.com. Make the switch from Eventbrite today to our amazing ticketing and registration system with no ticket fees. Most ticketing systems charge you a minimum of 3% of the ticket price, but we just have a flat, low fee with no ticket fees and no restrictions. There's literally no system out there that is cheaper than EventsFrame. It's also super easy to use, and you can embed your tickets in your website, or you can use our own website builder, which is really simple. We have amazing options to apply all kinds of discounts and all the features you'd expect from a much more expensive system like QR code check-in. Go to eventsframe.com, that's eventsframe.com, for a free, no-risk, 1-month trial. Hello and welcome to the Events Podcast. Today I'm delighted to be talking to Roman Grigoriev, calling from London. He's the founder of Splento, which is a company that links together photographers and things for event producers. And we're going to talk a bit about his story and also how people can leverage content to maximize engagement. So hi, Roman, how's it going?
Hi, Dan. All good. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So Roman, just to set the scene, like, where are you? Tell us where you are. You're in Soho? Like, are you in an office or are you at home? Like, where are you right now?
No. So we are in a place called Wyra. So it's Telefónica's, the large mobile telco provider. So they have a corporate accelerator called Wyra. And we got into the accelerator program 2 years ago. And so we're still here with them. Okay. So that's bang in the middle of Soho, next to Piccadilly Circus.
Cool. So, Roman, we were just talking before the podcast, and you've got quite an interesting story. Like, you were born in Estonia when it was still part of the Soviet Union, and you ended up coming to England. So I think it's just good to talk a bit about your background, like how things started for you, how you got into entrepreneurship, and how you ended up coming to the UK.
Absolutely. So always been sort of an entrepreneur, basically a problem solver. That's what gets me out of bed. I see problems people have, and I want to solve them. Could have become a programmer or developer. Instead, chose the entrepreneurial route. Started experimenting with businesses in Estonia still when I was in uni. But then
what year was that? Like, was it? I guess the Soviet Union had ended by this time, and it was a free economy and everything.
Yeah, and Estonia is a very different world from. So Estonia is way ahead of all of Soviet Union, former Soviet Union.
Was it wealthy even during the Soviet Union? Was it like wealthier than other parts of the Soviet Union?
Yeah. So it was officially called window to Europe for Soviet Union. So all the sort of Soviets from any republic coming, even from Moscow coming to Estonia, was saying, "Oh wow, it's so cool, it's so European." So Estonia was that window, and it was closer to Finland and Stockholm, sort of Sweden, than to Soviet Union. So not necessarily wealthy. None of Soviet Union was wealthy, but it was more open, more European. Sure. And even in the 90s, when all these sort of terrible things were happening in Russia, in Estonia, we had the prime minister, aged 25, 27. All the cabinet ministers were very young, very technocrats. And the whole idea about Estonia is that it's so small. We were only 1.4 million people, and there aren't any natural resources. So there is no corruption. There is no, it's just a proper European state. But it's also small. And so for me, I grew up basically in a European state, even though sort of I grew up initially in Soviet Union, but then in the 90s, in Estonia, I was almost like growing up in Finland or somewhere else. You didn't feel the difference. You didn't feel this post-Soviet, legacy.
Wasn't Skype founded in Estonia around
Exactly. And IT started taking off very soon, sort of in 2000s. The government was all e-government by mid-2000s, sort of noughties. So all the taxes could be filed online. Then all the internet banks, we had internet banks in 2000, 2001, where, I mean, we're still in Britain, we're getting to that now with Revolut and everyone else.
I'm actually an Estonian e-resident. I've never done anything with it. I just thought I'd apply for it. It looked interesting, and I went through the process, and I had to go to the Estonian consulate in Prague and get my e-residency card and stuff. And it's quite funny, interesting program.
But it's and even opening companies in Estonia, it took me. I mean, of course, in Britain, then I managed to open it in an hour and a half. But in Estonia, even 15 years ago, when I opened my first company, it took me like 2 hours. So it's always been super smooth, super easy. But the challenge was it's 1.4 million, and relatively, it just when I moved out of Estonia 15 years ago, startups weren't, even though it was a very technological company, startups weren't a thing yet in Europe, not just in Estonia. And so I could see that there isn't anything you can't basically change the world. You can't build something huge out of Estonia. You could be very local business, but not sort of global. Of course, now that has changed, and Estonia has, for 1.4 million, we, I think, have 5 unicorns. So it's doing really well now. But back then we weren't. And so I thought, where can I go? And I went to America, spent a bit of time there, but it was, for me, just for my liking, too far, too much of a commute to Europe. And London seemed like the ideal place.
Yeah. And I guess you spoke English as well, so it was a logical place for this reason.
Yeah. So in that sense, Estonia is very literate, and English is, well, there are 2 languages, Russian and Estonian. And for everyone who's ethnically Russian, like myself, from Estonia, they speak 2 languages, and English is always third, and you speak it from grade 2 or something. So yeah, no problem. Even though coming in here, and when you hear a Cockney accent or something, that took some time to getting used to.
Sure.
And now it's fine.
And what did you do? Like, what was the first thing you did in the UK when you arrived?
Property. You'd be surprised, but I sort of capitalized on my Russianness and went into property. I then did my master's degree in Oxford Brookes. I became the first Russian-speaking chartered surveyor, so I was valuing properties across London, all those multi-million-pound properties.
How was it like? You must have a couple of interesting stories, because you mentioned before you were dealing with a lot of these, oligarchs or kind of junior oligarchs who were buying property. Like, what was like some crazy things that happened with these guys? I imagine I have images of them just turning up with suitcases full of money, saying, "Buy me a place in Mayfair" or something.
Yeah, so I missed that wave. As far as I understand from my sort of peers back then in the mid-noughties, that was the case in the 90s when London was kind of laundromat of the world and all the dirty money coming in. But then in 2000s, they started screwing basically all the bolts and making sure that it doesn't happen. And by the time I entered the industry, it was not squeaky clean, but really, really clean. But what you'd be surprised is what we see about all those Russians is it's very different. We all think that it's always government officials or something, but there are loads of great business people who have a lot of money because it's a huge country and they don't like being there. So they come here, send their kids to schools. But what surprises me is always a lot of them adopted the same way like Mark Zuckerberg and all the IT entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley. They go and look at a house for 50 million and they walk out of a Uber taxi cab or something else wearing sneakers, so no Gucci belts or something like that. So it would still be expensive sneakers and expensive training shoes, but no bodyguards, no nothing. Even though in the 90s in Russia you always had those assassinations, even also normal business people, when they come here they're absolutely fine, they're absolutely relaxed, and they love. So it's a very, very different world.
Right. So how long did you do this for then?
Gosh, it's from 2004 to 2000, so before I founded Splento, so almost 10 years. But whilst I was doing property, I still sort of started dabbling in startups and trying to understand the tech world. I had my mobile app development studio, then did voucher code, created a pan-European voucher codes website, and sort of gaming studio. So loads of different things.
So what, were you using the money you made from the real estate to start the app development and stuff like that?
Yeah. So the idea was, I always understood that with property, at least in that reincarnation and how I understood the market, you couldn't really build something. I mean, you could service 100 families and make them very happy, and that's wonderful, but you couldn't make a huge dent in the universe. Whereas with what we're doing now, I could see much bigger problem for much larger number of clients. So the idea was to make money in property and then invest into IT and build something bigger and better.
Okay. Cool. So what was next? Like, did you transition out of a property, or how did it go?
So property actually was the sort of, I always saw problems with visual content forever. I understood that it doesn't, I saw 10, 15 years ago that the world is moving online. It was inevitable that everything that we're doing offline now is going to be done online. All the purchases, education, everything. And when something is moving from offline to online, it needs to be visualized, whether with photography or videography, or in 5 years' time with VR or AR. That's going to happen. The same is going to happen with events. So it's just a matter of time. Now you probably have, VR at 1 in 1,000 events. Give it 5 years, every single one is going to have it. And so I saw that it's a problem everywhere. It's broken. It's only freelancers are doing it. There is no consistent way. There is no brand that can do all of that. But I just saw it and never did anything about it. And then when I started working closer in property, I came across property was one of the industries that really, really required visual content on a regular basis. You can't sell properties without photography. That was evident from day one. And I came across photographers who are late, who charge ridiculous amount of prices. You then get your photos months later. So it was all the problems were there. And I thought, gosh, we need to change that. And that was the first step. So photography, in our journey to help the world move from offline to online, that was the first step. Basically, photography was that light bulb moment saying that, look, it is actually a big problem. And it is a big problem for all different industries. And let's help change that. And yeah.
And obviously you did this for events, but were you running events yourself at this time, or did you manage to find some event producers and you could do the photography for them?
Yeah. So with events, so with my property company, we ran some events ourselves. So it's inevitably any business needs any successful, or not necessarily successful, but any business needs to organize events, whether it's for them internally, for their customers, for their partners. So every business needs events. And so we were running our own and came across that problem. But now for our business, we are actually working with a lot of large event producers, small event organizers. So it's a whole mix. But yeah, personally, so events business for me was never sort of my main business. I never did events as a business for living, but we always organized and did loads of events.
But when you started this marketplace for photographers, did you think we're going to go after event producers, or did you think we could do this for anyone and they were the people who expressed interest, or how did you end up in that kind of sector?
Iterations. So that was pivoting in iterations. We actually initially started with property photography, then realized, gosh, actually there are problems and margins are wrong and loads of other things that were wrong with property. So then we pivoted to B2C. Again, the unit economics didn't stack up. And then we found that actually events is the biggest market of all, has some of the biggest problems, especially large events, and our solutions were suitable for it. So yeah, we had to build out funnels and work actively to pursue event industry ourselves. Yeah.
I'm curious how you did that, because obviously there's probably some people listening to this, I'm just thinking, who are like marketing their services to event companies. Like, how did you go about figuring out who was running events, and how did you get in touch with them?
So it's the usual. So there is no silver bullet. Just like with anything, there is a whole sort of marketing 360, and it's not just marketing; it's sales and business development 360. So you go from direct sales to providing content to search optimization to social media doesn't really work that much. But yeah, then going to events where event organizers are. That's probably one of the biggest benefits for us was actually there are events, huge conferences for event organizers, and so we are a regular feature there as well. But it's never that's what I've come to realize over the past many years, is that there is never a silver bullet.
Just to step in here quickly to mention our sponsor, Events Frame, a project I'm co-founder of, and I want to mention our integrations, which we believe are the best available. Firstly, payment integrations. You can connect any payment gateway such as Stripe, PayPal, on Braintree, or even bank account or take cash. You can connect everything to EventsFrame. We also have the best marketing integrations out there with every email marketing system, including MailChimp, Zapier, Infusionsoft, Aweber, Drip. And we've got deep integrations with all the social media platforms like Facebook, Google, and Twitter. We've got thousands of events live on EventsFrame right now, ranging from small community meetups to huge trade shows and conferences. Check it out over at eventsframe.com. That's eventsframe.com. And now, back to the interview. Because when I talk to event producers about how they market their events, there's different people have different areas of expertise, and some people get really good at social media and different things. But I think the main thing is just like, I had one guy on who runs the marketing meetup, and he was saying you just got to take massive action. You have to just call a lot of people. You've got to be on LinkedIn, find everyone, email them, follow up. Like, it's just like, it's a grind. And I think a lot of people make the mistake nowadays of running events or any business, but especially in events, like of thinking, you know, they want to hide behind a computer and automate the marketing process. And you can definitely do that to some extent. But I still think in the beginning, I don't know any businesses who didn't succeed in the beginning without just manual, huge amounts of effort, chasing down people, you know, manually.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Dan. It's about a lot of hard work, but with time you then have to fine-tune and understand where you have the highest ROI, and then start fine-tuning those processes. But initially, you're absolutely right. You just go sort of channel after channel, audience after audience, and just test a lot of manual grind. But once you're seeing the results, it's about measuring and figuring out sort of ROI on a specific channel and then scaling that channel.
So how, like, you've obviously worked with a lot of event producers with your photo service. Like, what tips could you give people running events from what you've learned? Because you mentioned about leveraging content. Like, what have you seen that's good at what they have done, especially people, you know, starting running their first event or whatever?
So it's definitely a lot about visual. So it's not, again, no silver bullet. So it's not just one thing, and you have to experiment, and it depends how big the event is, how many attendees, how many days it's going on for. So the first thing would be experiment. Don't think that once you get a photographer or videographer or live streaming, or you empower your audience to take photos and share that, or whatever other solutions, there are hundreds and hundreds of them, that something is going to work for you. There are all different solutions for all different types of events in different geographies, because we work worldwide, and something that works here in London, it doesn't work at all in Hong Kong. So,
but I think, well, what are some like basic things? Like, for example, I when I run events, I encourage everyone. I put the hashtag everywhere. I constantly tell people, post on Twitter, post on Instagram, use this hashtag. Like that's like a basic thing. People can, you know, try to get trending on the hashtag, and try to, you know, tag a bunch of people and get people sharing your content, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good one. There is a challenge that a lot of, I think that recent statistics are saying like 80% or 85% of all social media interactions are actually happening in those dark social media nets, i.e. private WhatsApp groups, so people between themselves or colleagues between themselves sharing content, sharing photos, sharing, I don't know, screenshots of presentations where you can't even track. So everything you're seeing on Twitter or on Facebook that you are encouraging, you're actually just seeing the tip of the iceberg. Everything else is
WhatsApp. I mean, yeah, everyone now. I'm in so many WhatsApp groups now where just people share a bunch of things. Yeah.
So basically, you should encourage people to or share galleries with them or something, or content. So basically, you need to give them tools that you can then track. So if you're doing a presentation,
are you saying could people start sharing to WhatsApp groups? Do you think, or how could they use that kind of stuff? Do you think?
Yeah. So for example, if you're doing a presentation somewhere, give everyone a link to that presentation. For example, I don't know, we're using Beautiful AI, whatever the service is, and it actually is tracked. And there are other companies that you can track the presentation clicks and everything. So the main thing about running events, any business, is it has to be measurable. You really need to understand what's happening. But if 90 or 80% of what's happening you can't control and you don't understand, it's a problem longer term. You can't grow it. So you need to put as many metrics and get as much information as possible out of everything you do. So if you have a presentation, share a link, not just a PDF, but a link that they will share internally on their WhatsApp groups. And you will then know that whether 5 people looked at this presentation, or 10 or 20 or 100. And then you can make decisions. Or if there are photos from your event, the same thing, share it in a gallery that you can track, not Google Photos or Dropbox, but something that you can actually see how many people shared, how many people downloaded, and which photo they downloaded, and so on. So there are all these things that you really need to get a grip on your metrics. Otherwise, you're going blind, and you'll be doing a lot of that manual work that is necessary, that we discussed with you, but you don't want to do a lot of manual work that is necessary forever. You want to do it initially. Once you organize your 5, 10, 20 events, then you understand what's working and how.
Good idea. I think getting every presenter to put a bit.ly link to the presentation.
Biggest
slide, and also make them. I would like, what I've done sometimes is every presenter has to have the same opening slide and then a slide which has some information about the event, you know, with a link so people can.
Awesome. Absolutely, yeah. That's definitely the case. So yeah, that's one of the things. Second thing is there is what we're seeing at least with bigger events, but with smaller as well, is the sort of walk-ins and last-minute attendees. So you have planned your event, you're sort of making a huge push leading up in 3 months' time to it, and then suddenly, sort of last minute, it's just how we are now, how this society is built, is that we sometimes do things on a spur, and that's happening more and more often. And you need to embrace that, but also you need to encourage people to share as much as possible, so you get more of those walk-ins and last-minute orders. Because that's, from what we can see, it's getting bigger and bigger. It used to be 5% at big trade shows. It used to be 5% walk-ins and last-minute attendees. Now it's growing, almost doubling. And
even our events, we get something, which are Google events for schools. We get something between 30 and 50% register in the last month. Like that's
wow. Last month or last minute? Because
last month. Well, I mean, that includes last minute, but yeah, in the last month and the last minute, you know.
Yeah. But there are literally sort of, you have a conference for 3 days, and then people hear about you in the first day. They never heard of you, but then someone went to that on the first day. They shared everything online. I don't know, they shared their presentation content. They're saying, oh, what a wonderful presentation, but that's so-and-so. And then you have 2 more people walking in, or 10 more people walking in, or whatever, 5% more walking in. And so you need to encourage
how do you use this to get more attendees like last minute? So because the presenters haven't presented yet, are you saying the presenters should be sharing their presentation like beforehand to get people to register last minute?
No, that comes back to sort of enabling your attendees to share as much as possible and giving them all the tools. So if you're giving them the tools of, I don't know, just a screenshot. So imagine there is a great presenter, I don't know, a CEO of some company, and all they have is that attendees are taking a dodgy picture of a dodgy presentation. Instead, if you do that first slide that you said that, look, all your photos are going to be here, your presentation materials are going to be here. If you like it, share it. Then all this 80% of what's happening that you can't control is great quality. So people, it's like with, I don't know, Airbnb is a bad example, but no one ever stayed in Airbnb when the photos and content was rubbish. Once suddenly it's all great and controllable, more people stayed in Airbnb. That was their hockey stick growth. And the same with events. If the presentation is just a screenshot that someone did from the audience from 10th row, it's a great presentation. But if all they did is that dodgy photo or presentation, not many people will walk in. If you give them access to that presentation in high resolution, the entire presentation, a lot more people will walk in. If there are not just ugly selfies or something, but actually you as an organizer are taking photos, or someone else, doesn't matter who, and it's a greater content, and you give these tools to attendees to share, and you have to understand that they will share that outside of your control. You can't do anything. You can't then follow up. I mean, some of them would share on Twitter and LinkedIn, but most would actually send to their colleagues and friends and saying, look, I'm sitting at this conference about Google apps. It's wonderful. Here's the full presentation. Someone will see it. And if it's in good quality, they will come in the next day. So the whole idea is about quality.
They can even send links to the schedule. Like we use something called Shed, which gives an online schedule. You know, if you encourage people to share that, they might share it out beforehand, and people can click on the individual sessions and things.
Yeah, and it comes down again to one of the biggest trends is just sort of engagement and interactivity. So how events were in the past is that you come in, you listen, and it's almost one-way street. And now we're getting into this world where it has to be a lot more engaging and it has to be a lot more interactive all the time. And with this kind of tools that you're giving people, then definitely they're feeling part of the whole thing, like part of the experience, not just a one-way listening. And that means that you'll have more people coming in the next day or the next year, actually.
Cool. Now I want to talk a bit about photography, because you know a lot about it. And let's imagine like someone setting up an event. Maybe they don't have money to get a photographer, but maybe they've got one of their team can run around and take pictures. Like, how should they be thinking about the photography of events? Should they have one person doing it, posting continuously? Should they be in the sessions? Like, should they be adding captions? Like, how would you suggest they approach the photography at, like, let's say a conference or a trade show?
So it depends, because we've done everything and we have experience sort of in helping really small ones to the biggest ones. So with the biggest ones, for instance, you really wouldn't be able to do it as in yourself. So we had a large conference, artificial intelligence conference in London over 3 days. So they needed 30, 40 photographers because there were 300 speakers, I think 50 stages or something like that, ridiculous amount. So you basically, you simply can't. And of course they needed, then when you have 10,000 photos from that conference, You need them stored in a specific way. Galleries easy to search, facial recognition to find any speaker in a minute from anywhere. You just simply can't do it. So there are some types of conferences where you have to go with someone like us, and it's just impossible. But there are smaller conferences where you still need visual content, and here you definitely can do it yourself. I mean, cameras are getting. I've got the latest Pro Huawei, so we're testing how good the cameras are on phones, and we ran a test with the latest Huawei P30, I think it's called. Jesus Christ, it's seriously, it's just as good as not the latest, but just as good as the camera. Of course, you need some skill.
I've got the new Google Pixel 4 phone, and actually, it's great. The quality is really, really good.
Absolutely. You just need, so basically what you need is either get someone to come in and train your staff to take photos, because you still, even with the latest camera, if you are incorrectly positioning it, there are certain sort of rules in visual content that sell. You still need a bit of training, but of course you'd be saving a lot of money. But not going without any visual content is definitely a bad idea, because that's the easiest way for you to attract new customers for next year. And that comes down actually to another, sorry, I'm jumping from one idea to another, but a lot of trade shows, they're saying the biggest problem for them is that for them it's a madhouse leading up to the trade shows 2-3 months in advance. So they're not doing a lot throughout the year, and then when the event or a trade show is approaching, it's all hands on deck. They're suddenly sort of posting 10 times a day on social media, and they're saying, we know it's wrong. We know we should be doing a drip campaign, drip marketing every day throughout the year, tagging the right people.
By the way, this is a great tip. I think I've heard people say the same thing. Just you've got a bunch of great pictures from the conference or the trade show. Just start sharing them out over the year. Hey, what a great time we had this session. Here's a link to the speaker. Posting it on everything, on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. I think that is a great tip.
Exactly, and that's why you should be taking photos yourself. It doesn't matter whether it's photographers or sort of your brother-in-law or someone or a professional company, but you should definitely have great quality photos, whoever takes them, and post them regularly, tag everyone and throughout sort of different social medias. That's where the interesting part comes in. If you've got loads and loads of speakers, you can use facial recognition technology to actually, so if you've taken thousands of photos, it does take a lot of time to find a specific person, but you can actually, with facial recognition, you can pick a specific gallery just for one person, drag and drop their photo. You have, from all those thousands of photos, only their 10 best photos, and you go and tag for one day that person, etc. So there is so much tech out there for events. It's just a matter of...
And how does the facial recognition work? I guess you have to take a picture of everyone who attends the event, and then when you take a picture of the event, you can pick out their face from the picture that was on registration.
Yeah, you can do that, or you can do with... so, for example, we have that... I don't know if you know of London Tech Week. So there is... there are like 300 or 150 or 300 events, tech-related events around London. So we're working with one big company that, what is that? I don't know, like 15 big anchor events. But they're saying that, look, we actually need all the, sometimes we have all the biggest, so this company, they have all the biggest speakers, but sometimes big speakers come to fringe events as well. So they wouldn't have any photos of them, but they have all the connections with the media. So they're saying, I don't know, we have a CEO of, let's say, Facebook attending a different event, but we don't have their photo. How can we find it? So what we're doing with them, for instance, is that we're providing just our technology platform where everyone will upload the photos. So we're not taking those photos at all. We're just providing the tech. They're uploading all the photos there. Everything is automatically facial recognition tagged. And then someone from any event organized during London Tech Week can drop an image just of any person, of you, Dan, for example, into our gallery. And then you have all the photos of you from all the events together. So it works only for big events and sort of multi-day conferences like, I don't know, MWC or London Tech Week. But this technology is open out there. There are so many solutions. It's just ridiculously easy and saves a lot of time. Because if you are as an operation, so if you're a small event, it's fine. And if you have 100 people attending, it's not a problem. But as you grow and as you have tens of or dozens of events a year and worldwide, and you have all these different galleries, and you need a photo of a main sponsor who is sponsoring all the events around the world for you. How do you do that? You can either put an intern and they will spend 10 hours doing that, or you can just use this facial recognition technology or logo recognition technology. So there is loads of stuff helping out.
Hey, just one final thing, like what have you seen as like a good place, people using photography and things, where do you think the best place to promote, just to post your pictures and promote them is? Obviously people should be posting everywhere, I guess, but have you seen like any 80-20, like where people have had the most success in sharing their pictures and driving engagement and getting attendees?
It really depends on top of your attendees. So it depends what are you running, sort of if you're B2B or B2C, because many trade shows are B2C.
Let's start with B2B, kind of B2B events.
It's LinkedIn. It's without any doubt. LinkedIn is a lot more demanding than any other. Probably Instagram the most demanding in terms of high quality, but LinkedIn is the second most demanding in terms of high quality. Twitter is you can post any rubbish and it's fine, but on LinkedIn you really need high quality. Facebook again. So it will be Instagram if you want to attract any attention, but you won't get any B2B there at all. If you're going B2B, then it's LinkedIn. Then Facebook, then Twitter.
Roman, I think we're more or less out of time. Thank you very much for your time. It was a really interesting chat and a few really great tips. Like, where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you?
So we're at splento.com, and any questions, we'd be delighted to help. Even just for advice, because we literally work with loads of event managers, organizers all around the world of different types and sizes. So just happy to speak and share knowledge from across the world.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. Really interesting chat, and the best of luck for you with the company and everything else.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Do you want to sell more tickets to your amazing events? EventsFrame event ticketing has been built to minimize the amount of time it takes to buy a ticket. Result? You sell more tickets. Check out eventsframe.com.